Okay, we are going to talk about Haydn String Quartet's Opus 64, number 4, first movements. Before we start the first movements, I want to say something for first violin. In this piece, every movement starts with the first violin's pickup. So first violinists need to make sure the character and the tempo first before playing it, because the pickup is very important, not only for yourself but the other ensemble member to feel the character. So just make sure the tempo first. So first movement starts like this. This is the first phrase, and actually the original music doesn't have the slur in the first measure, like. But if we are separate, the eighth notes can be popped too much. So just be very careful if you're using the separate bow. But I actually choose the hooked bow. If you're using slur, the hook bow, you have to articulate a little bit more. Like this. So from the pickup, this is very important, intonation and the rhythm. It shouldn't be too heavy, because if it's too heavy, it feels like downbeat. So just be very careful not to heavy the pickup. And to me, I'm thinking the first note and the second beat B, and then the second major first note G. You can imagine the phrase like this, and then you can add the other note. It makes easy to play the long phrase. Then third measure pickup. If you don't vibrato the pickup, then sound is too flat and seems like really dead notes. So just make sure vibrato on the pickup. But at the same time, you have to be very careful not accent on the eighth note, because we have a sforzando and the downbeat and measure 3. So the measure 3's first note should be bigger than the pickup. Just make sure the vibrato and the very light bow. So after 3 measures and forte, we have subito piano on second beat in measure 4. To me, it's so hard because we finish the phrase like, and melody goes down, so it naturally sounds like diminuendo. So just make sure that the first measure, first note of measure 4, D, shouldn't be too soft. And then on the rest, the eighth note, eighth at rest, I think first violin needs to think a little bit longer than just 8 notes, because of our sound, of the ringing sound, we have to a little bit wait, and then we have to make sure everyone ready on the string, the bow, before the subito piano. So again, from the very beginning to here. And then again playing the same theme repeated. But in second time, first time at measure 4 pickup, C was a little bit lower C. But here, measure 7 pickup is. So you have to make sure, I imagine a little bit, not just bigger sound, a little bit more open sound, more than the first one. So. And actually, second time is more decorated. So measure 1 started very simple, but measure 5. So when you play the 16 notes, here you need more articulate. Just playing like not, it shouldn't be like, I think it's more active character, so more articulate here, and then more open sound here, and then same one. Yes. Then from measure 10, new rhythm figures appears, like cello and viola play the long notes on the first bit, ba-dum, and then first violin just play kind of echo, but still here I play a little bit more and then a little bit less second time. So then in measure 12, this second beat we have a spiro forte. Here, what I was thinking is, if we are playing too loud, I can't make a longer phrase. So I play very loud on the second beat, but then a little bit drop. So I can make it a little bit longer phrase. Yeah, so just make sure from the measure 10. So we have a lot of 16 notes here. So when you play the 16 notes, just make sure it sound shouldn't be like too attitude or something. So imagine a longer phrase. Like this. So from the measure 12, second beat, and then a little bit drop. And then we have a C sharp here. So to me, when I have a lot of 16 notes, I'm thinking a lot of grouping. So from the measure 12 to measure 15, because we have a lot of 16 notes, just don't think about every single 16 notes so that you can play longer phrase. Maybe by the harmony you can feel a little bit differently. And we have a chord under here. I'm a little bit, on the quarter notes I release the bow a little bit so we can breathe. And then another 16 notes. I'm thinking at least 8 16 notes as a one group. And then so you can think about more grouping for making a longer phrase. Then the same theme appears in measure 16. On measure 17, the bowing is a little bit uncomfortable because the second beat, eighth notes B can be popped up too much, so very careful the not using too much the bow on the second eighth notes. Then we have a sforzando and the first notes of measure 17, so you have to say bow. Sforzando with the vibrato, and then you have to make sure you have the separate eighth notes in measure 17 here. If you are not articulate this enough, it sounds too very different, because on measure 18, second violin and viola have a 16 notes, da 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 da. So if you're like too much legato sound, the sounds doesn't match. So and when you finish the phrase on measure 22, the quarter notes should be very loud. Because measure 23, we have a speedo piano, so if you are playing very loudly, if you finish the phrase quite loud, then we can make dynamic contrast more. So, and then here, minor chords. When you play the eighth notes, we have a dot, but it's not this character. So I use the tip here. A little bit long dot, but more articulate. And we have another 16 notes group here. It's actually the original bow is all separated, but this motion is very uncomfortable, so I made a slur on beginning two notes. And then slur again. And here actually we have no dynamic here, but the other edition, there is a Subito Forte 27, but that's not an original one. So we decided to just keep the very quiet dynamic. So from 26. But to me, if you're just keep the piano sounds as before, it's not interesting. So from here, the 16 notes, I play softer than before. And then before we change the major 29, I play a slight crescendo. And then, so when we arrive to 29, it's a little bit bigger than measure 27. So measure 27 is. So there is actually no dynamic marking, but I made it a little bit more crescendo after the major. So every 16 notes group getting a little bit bigger. So on measure 30 31, we have a fourth on the first bit. So measure 31, the D, high D is the biggest spot, and then we just finish the phrase. Then first violin solo again, measure 33. But the pickup is very important because I have a piano marking on measure 33 in the first bit, but the pickup eighth note is very important because it's kind of bridge to connect the before the phrase and the new first violin's kind of cadence section. So just make sure the eighth notes shouldn't be very short. I would say I try to feel more this shifting so that I can take time more naturally. But you have to be very careful because if we are playing this pickup eighth notes too long, we can lose the pulse. So play on the time the pickup and then a little bit delayed. And then when you arrive the first note of the measure 33, you have to pick up the original tempo. So from 32. So here we have another sport on the half notes measure 36. It's very uncomfortable because all these three bars, the 16 notes, we have to play on the G string. So to me, G string is a little bit harder to pronounce, to articulate than E string. So you have to articulate a little bit more than you think. And make sure the vibrato. And then, so on the half notes, the 36, the length is it's very confusing to me. It's very uncomfortable because we have a lot of 16 notes before and then just so to me, I just a little bit made a little crescendo right before, and then a little bit lower bow stroke, and then vibrato, and then release the sound, but not too much, not like this, but a little bit sustained, but not this sound. So that we can articulate a little bit more the third bit and lower D. Okay, then second part. From 39, measure 39, the cello started the figure yum bum 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 ba da dum, and the viola comes in, and the second violin, and the first violin plays the last. So when you, but to the first violin, this register is quite low, rather than like. So you need a little bit more articulate, otherwise the sound is too weak. So just make sure from the pickup, the eighth notes, especially the first measure, 41, is very important because it's repeated rhythmic figure from the cello part. So you have to articulate very well. Then from measure 42, we have a lot of 16 notes group until 53. So this bowing is very uncomfortable. I just practice a lot, but what I figured out is from the A string and E string, your bow angle should be very flat. Otherwise, it's too busy to move to play this very fast 16 notes. So just make sure your bow angle. And then I made a speedy piano with a different bow stroke. And then I just keep the sound. And then I play a little bit louder. Especially in measure 45, it's a little bit awkward because we have a lot of 16 notes and we are very busy, but we have to jump to the G string. So, and then this string crossing is not comfortable. So it might be better if you're thinking a little bit timing right before the measure 44. And then right before you go to the G string, you have to prepare very fast, but just relax a little bit so that you can use the bow a little bit more. And then this string crossing is too easy to play like this, but then we can lose the articulation. So I just press a little bit more on the G string, so everyone can hear, rather than so until here. I just played a little bit loud, and then the same figure the second time a little bit less. But from measure 48, if we are repeating too many times, it can be boring. So I just put a little bit less on measure 48. If we are playing like as before, it's so boring. So I just put the piano here, and then keep the sound on measure 49, and then from measure 50 I made a crescendo a little bit, because measure 51, the chords is very special for me. So before I just wanted to play a little bit more in 51, so I just saved the dynamic before. So from measure 48, no, maybe better if I play 47. Keep the sound very soft. And I kept the sound until the low B and measure 54, because when you play, you don't have to worry about articulation, because a cello play da-dee-dum, that melody, so it just naturally sounds very well. So but we have a very low register. You have to make sure a little bit play more. I mean, using more bow rather than two short bow. So more bow. And then this a figure like measure 23. This same rhythmic figures comes measure 54, but here we don't have a dot. So, but I would prefer articulate, but not this much. So, like a little bit longer detaching. And then from measure 58, it's kind of bridge to get back to the theme. So I would, there is no dots here, but I play a little bit shorter than before. Measure 60 is the same idea like measure 4. So right before the speed of piano, we take a little bit longer time. So here, right before the speed of piano, I take a slightly longer break. But here, just be very careful not making retardando. You have to keep the tempo, but just taking time right before the speed of piano. And then I would take a little bit more time after the speed of piano, because it's very, very intensive. Then just very beautiful melody comes up again. So you need to time to feel that atmosphere. So from 59. But not too much taking time. And here the minor section, I prefer to play a little bit broader, so but no taking no extra time or something. And very same figures appears again. The second movement, minuet. First of all,